Hello and welcome to another episode of Clutch Trick Gaming. Today I want to talk about drifting, how to get started drifting, how to improve drifting, how to tune a car for drifting, and just some basic tips for the beginner drifter. Today's not going to be for you guys that already know how to drift, so I don't need to know all the things I've done wrong in this. This is really for those people that are trying to start out. If your drifting usually looks like what you see going on right now, then stay tuned. The Ferrari 365. These were called the Daytona as far as I recall when I was a kid. It was really one of my dream cars, the Daytona Spider, like you saw in the old Miami Vice. I love the car. I love the simplicity, the fact that it's a Ferrari but just somehow doesn't look like a Ferrari, and I like the car being black instead of red. So naturally, when I started building drift cars in Forza several months ago, one of the first ones I tried to build was this car right here. I tried to make it look like it was old and had lived a long life as a race car and now has been dug out and used as a drift car, but I found myself to be pretty disappointed in the performance. Part of that was me, but part of it was the car. Now, in the real automotive industry, geometry is geometry, and math is math, and horsepower is horsepower. But we are playing a video game here. So, one of the first things that comes to mind when I try to help someone learn how to drift is, one, you gotta pick a car that the game designers intended to be drifted. That being said, let's get away from this beautiful little Ferrari and let's go find a car that's going to work better for us. So here we are in the auction house shopping for a new car. You can look in your garage also and see, you'll probably have some of these around. But any of these that have the HE or Horizon Edition drift skills next to them, those are cars that are already kind of geared towards drifting. They've got a few things that benefits them. One of the main issues is steering angle. More steering angle means you can get more sideways and keep control. Also, there just seems to be some kind of magical stuff that happens in the video game world, and I can honestly attest to the fact that a drift skills boost car in the game is going to be a better place to start with. Me personally, I like the M3. Aha! This little car right here, this one's got a really high buyout, $11 million. I'm not going to go for this one. Just getting in the right car is not all you need. You'll need two other things primarily. One, you'll need the car tuned properly, and you'll need your game settings tuned properly as well if you want to drift well. So you can see here, the car is still not really drifting very well at all. It's kind of hitting trains and stuff like that. So, as the new drifter, what you want to do once you've picked your car, you want to go to your settings, go to difficulty, and go down to shifting. It's very hard to drift with an automatic. I prefer to use a manual with clutch. It is not like driving a real car with clutch, so don't be at all intimidated. In fact, I can just give it gas and it takes off just fine whether I use a clutch or not. Here's the benefit to using a clutch. I can get the car up into third gear. I'm barely rolling. I can pull the button for clutch, hold it in and rev up the engine, and now I'm going to let that button out and watch what the car does. When I let it out, I immediately initiate wheel spin, which allows me to drift. Now the fact that I'm using a manual allows me to keep the car in the same gear rather than an automatic that's going to try to shift gears. With the car staying in the same gear, I'm able to control my wheel speed far more than if I were in an automatic. Really all I'm doing now is using the throttle to adjust my wheel speed. When I want more wheel speed, I give it more gas. When I want less wheel speed, I give it less gas. Now, what I've got here is my car that I drift with. It's finely tuned to how I like. So it may not be exactly how you're going to start out. But you're generally going to start out with a little more tire pressure in the rear than you normally would have, because you want those wheels to be able to spin pretty easily. Gear ratio, just like on some of my other tunes, you don't want a lot of actual speed. You don't want a lot of actual miles per hour. You want the car to have torque. Gears are a torque multiplier, so by gearing the car lower, more towards the acceleration side, we can make the vehicle able to spin the tires more easily. You may have seen there I was running around in third gear even without hitting the clutch. I could just give the car gas from a coast in third gear and it would spin the tires and turn sideways. So get the transmission update. Try to tune your gears more towards the acceleration side with not a lot of speed. Alignment. On the alignment, I like to give it a little bit of negative camber in front. That way those tires are leaned in just a little bit, and when you're going around a turn as the car moves, you're actually gaining more traction on that inside front wheel as it leans over, and that allows you to have more control. On the rear, you're going to hear different things here. Some people like to run a lot of negative camber on the rear. They do that to tilt the wheels up on their edge and reduce traction for drifting. Me, I like to use a lot of horsepower, so I go for more traction on drifting. I try to have the wheels pretty much flat, so I set that camber right in the middle, and I use horsepower to get my wheels to spin rather than reduce traction. Toe in and out, I just leave that alone. Caster you can play with according to what you like. Low or high is going to have different effects on steering. Kind of tune that according to your own preference. Anti-roll bars, sway bars as we normally call them. Sometimes you think they don't have a lot of effect on drifting, but they can have an effect on understeer and oversteer. Typically on a car that doesn't have a lot of horsepower and you want to get the rear end to steer, or you want to get the rear end to slide easily, you're going to take this and run it all the way to the stiff side. For me, like I say, I like to use a lot of horsepower instead of suspension adjustments. So in order to get this car to not slide so much, I actually loosened mine up or softened it up some. Same goes for your springs. For spring rate, if you have really stiff springs in the rear, that's going to cause the car to want to slide around a lot easier. Again, that's for cars with lower horsepower. With mine, I'm around the 1,000 horsepower range, so I've got mine softened up a little bit to give me a little better control and let me use the engine's power to spin instead of the lack of traction. Ride height, just slam it all the way on the ground. We don't want a lot of body roll. We want the car to be stable and flat, so we're just going to put it all the way on the ground. Your dampening on your shocks, I don't really worry about so much on this. They can have a similar effect to springs and sway bars. If you make them really, really stiff, it can cause the car to want to slide around a lot. So I kind of leave that stuff alone for my types of builds. But if this car, for example, was having a lot of difficulty not wanting to slide all the way through a turn, if it was wanting to straighten up, I could go in here and I could stiffen up both the bound and rebound, or bump stiffness and rebound, on the rear to make that stiffer and make it want to slide more. Downforce, obviously not something you really want on a drift car unless you have a drift car that's sliding out too easily on you. So I don't even go into that on my drift cars. Braking, same thing, not a big deal. Differentials, this is very important. The differential, the rear end of the car, your differential allows one wheel to spin faster than the other. So like if you're going around a turn or something, that outside wheel actually has to move farther in a turn than the inside wheel. So your differential allows them to move at a different speed from each other so that inside wheel is not bouncing or something as you're going around a turn. So what we do here, if you want to just take this all the way to the high side 100%, you can, and that will help keep the rear end sliding. It will help you to not gain traction in a sense once you're already drifting. You'll see here I've got mine turned down just a little bit. That is to give me some controllability back. Say the car was sliding too much and I want the car to straighten back up more when I let off the throttle. That's when I'll reduce the differential here and really acceleration is usually the only one I worry with. On a drift car, I'll move the acceleration and deceleration together, so they're both at 75%. That's for a car, like I say, if you're on the throttle and then you let off the throttle real fast and it just keeps on sliding and wrecks, try reducing the differential. Straightening or lowering it will cause the car to want to straighten itself out some. Now you've got to learn how to actually drift a car. For that, let me recommend a couple of places. For one, everyone drifts up at the parking lot. And as long as Horizon 3 has been out by now, you should already know this and already know how to get there. This is the place to go to drift most of the time. The good thing about the parking lot is that you don't have any traffic coming at you, and people have drifted here enough that there's kind of like the recommended path that everyone takes. And all I'm doing right here, you see I'm staying in the same gear. I'm just giving it more or less throttle. If I want the car to be more sideways, I give it more throttle. If I want the car to be less sideways, I let off on the throttle. Even to the point I can let all the way off sometimes. And sometimes like this, you see I'm on the throttle, off, on, off, just kind of feathering it to get it to do what I want it to do. So let's actually try to make a decent pass here. Actually, I haven't been drifting in a while. I've been playing mostly playground games with people. See there, when I want more sideways, we just give her more throttle. This is why I like to use a high horsepower car that's meant to kind of hook up and go as a drift car, because sometimes you want it to drift for a long period of time. And what you're seeing me do here, for the most part, I'm probably a third to half throttle. But when I see the car trying to straighten up a little bit and I know I'm not at the turn where I want it to turn yet, I just lay into the throttle a lot more. And that goes ahead and thrusts me towards that turn and keeps the car sideways at the same time. If you suck at drifting and you want to start from scratch, go to this circle right here. And I'm going to show you the easiest way on the planet to just start to baby step into drifting. So now that you're at the circle, I want to show you the best way to baby step yourself into starting drifting as a new drifter, someone that maybe totally sucks and you're just now getting started. So you get here, you look around, you see you got a lot of traffic. You're going to have to deal with traffic. It's just part of it. I'm sure there's ways to turn it off, but we're not going to today. We've got everything set up. Now what I'm going to do is just start driving, and I'm just going to drive around this circle, just normal driving. I'm going to shift up into second. Shift up into third. Oh, we got a little bit of traffic. So I'm cruising along here. Now I'm just going to start to speed up. And as I speed up, the car's going to want to start to slide. Just that little blip of the throttle just put me into a total drift. And now all I'm doing is just trying to keep it going. So see what's happening here? I want to do this again. Going along in third gear. As soon as we can get past some traffic here. So I'm in third gear. See how I'm sliding around? But it's like there's just something not quite right, maybe. Maybe I can tell because I'm the one driving and maybe it's hard to tell from the video. At this point here, I'm telling myself something's just not quite right. I'm having to fight to keep the car sideways on this long of a circle. What I want to do here is shift to a higher gear ratio. I'm in third. Let's go to fourth. Now we're going to be going a faster mile per hour, but it's going to start to clean up and smooth out our drift. I'm giving it much less throttle, and we got everybody and their brother driving around the circle right now, looks like. Yeah, we're going to wreck. Let's get back out here. We'll start from scratch again. Doing this just like it's my first time. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth. So I'm just cruising along in fourth gear. See some traffic, and I'm going to get past this traffic, and I'm just going to stab the throttle. And stab that van. Okay, back on it again. Yeah, a little too much that time. There we go. Now with it in fourth gear, I'm able to feather the throttle a lot more. I'm able to keep it sliding with much less throttle. But when I need the throttle or I need the wheel spin, I've got a lot more potential wheel spin in that higher gear. So I can keep her under control. So there you go. I hope that helped. Just some basic beginner tips to help someone that's wanting to learn how to drift but really struggling and has no clue, or for someone that just can't quite figure out exactly what is causing problems. If you have any questions on how to tune for drifting, I know this was just like a real basic skim over, please ask those questions in the comments. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel. And if you like this video, hey, please help me grow this channel by sharing this video with your friends or on social media or something. Let them know that the channel exists, and I would greatly appreciate it. That being said, guys, thank you. Clutch is out.